Welcome to another long-awaited episode of Monday Movie Pickup. I'm very excited for this release. This is the newest Warner Archive Collection release. It is Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, and there's also the somewhat forgotten Scooby-Doo Return to Zombie Island. I don't know if a lot of people even knew a sequel came out. It came out in 2019. I did see the movie. I own it on DVD, so I'm able to get rid of the DVD now and have the Blu-ray, but I was very disappointed in that sequel, given that, to me, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island is not just the best of the animated Scooby-Doo movies, but I actually think it's maybe the best Scooby-Doo project in the entire franchise. I think it's better than the live-action movies. I returned to that movie quite a bit as a kid, and it's always been a favorite of mine, so hearing that it was going to be hitting Blu-ray, it made me very happy, because there's a lot of other Scooby-Doo movies that have hit Blu-ray, but this one, for the longest time, did not. So they packaged them together, and, whatever. They have the sequel included. I think the sequel is so strangely not connected to the original, though. I mean, they go to the same island. There's a little bit of a change in the continuity, if I remember. I don't think it followed the same rules as the first movie. But again, it's a very forgettable sequel for what is an incredible original movie. The movie that basically started the whole direct-to-video Scooby-Doo animated releases. This is the one that started it all. So, very cool to have it in the collection now on Blu-ray. I'm excited to see what the restoration looks like, if they've done any cleanup work to it. I've really only ever seen it through VHS. I watched my copy on DVD once, but for the most part, I only have memories with the VHS version, so watching it on Blu-ray will be like watching the movie brand new. It'll be great. And then we have a couple Shout Select releases. This was off of eBay. This is Backbeat. This is actually a movie about the fifth Beatle. I don't really know anything else about it beyond that, but I'm always a fan of these Beatles movies that either create their own lore or they're just about the band itself. I'm not even the biggest Beatles fan, but the documentaries are always fun. There's that Robert Zemeckis movie, I Want to Hold Your Hand. I think that's a lot of fun. Yesterday was okay. I liked the concept a lot, but the movie wasn't all that great. I've only ever heard some stories about the so-called fifth Beatle, so maybe this movie will do that story justice. I'm just realizing too that the Backbeat logo is it looks a little bit like the Beatles logo. It's the same font anyway. But they also had a 4K sale, so I decided to get some of the Shout Select 4Ks. This is the Magnificent Seven. I've actually never seen this movie. I'm very I know more about Seven Samurai. I've seen that movie. There's a lot of westerns that were taking elements from samurai movies, and this is one of them. And I am curious to give it a watch. I know that they made a remake of this film. I've never seen the remake either. I know that this movie also has a few sequels. I don't know if Shout has plans to ever release those ones. I thought maybe one of them would be included with this release, but it turns out that's not the case. There's a lot of different featurettes on it, but I don't think there's anything new besides a new restoration. And then I have another 4K. This is Point Break. I had seen Point Break a few years ago. I never saw the remake. Didn't really have a lot of interest in seeing that. I've seen the other movie that's similar to Point Break, The Fast and Furious. That movie sometimes has been criticized for taking a lot of elements from Point Break, which is kind of funny because The Fast and the Furious then went in a completely different direction than what the original movie was like. But the original movie shares a lot of similarities to Point Break. An officer, he impersonates one of the members of this gang, and he joins them in order to do this sting operation. And I have only ever seen the movie once. I don't remember taking it in all that much. I know it's one of those iconic 90s movies, and it's Catherine Bigelow, so this is the movie that really jump-started her career. So, besides Patrick Swayze, even in the bad movies, he's great. We have a couple of these Film Masters releases. So I've gotten a couple other of these releases, but I'm trying to grow this collection because they're essentially doing the job of getting a lot of these crappy transfers of these movies that have been through, basically released through Mill Creek for many years. Some of them are public domain. These movies have often not been given the best treatment on home video. So Film Masters is actually doing a great job taking some of these cult favorites. There was like The Terror, Little Shop of Horrors, got brand new transfers just for this Blu-ray series. And now they have The Beast from the Haunted Cave, and this other one I've never heard of, Ski Troop Attack. That's a great thing. They always add an additional movie to it, but they actually give 2 discs for both films, and you know, like a Criterion disc, they give out a booklet that has all this like extra information about the making of the movie and just interviews and all kinds of different stuff. And and I just saw Roger Corman's name dropped in there at one point. I don't know if he was involved in one or both of these movies. The point is, he was involved in a lot of B movies at the time, between the 50s and the 60s, and you know, obviously throughout the decades after that, a lot of those movies are like public domain, and they've shown up on Mill Creek box sets. And of course, Roger Corman passed away just a few days ago, so you know, rest in peace to one of the greatest B movie directors, producers that ever existed in Hollywood, and he has so many connections to some of the greatest filmmakers to ever exist. So Roger Corman was the start of many people's careers, and rest in peace to him. And it only makes sense to be looking at some of these B-movie films, a lot of which just have never been given good treatment at home on Blu-ray, but they're finally doing the job. And like with this one, so this one's Beast from the Haunted Cave. This actually has Creature from the Haunted Sea. I've actually heard of this one before. I don't know if I've ever heard of The Devil's Partner, though. But regardless, just like their other releases, these come with 2 discs. So I love that each movie is given its individual disc, even though one's only considered a bonus film with the set. Essentially, they're just 2 movie collections. That's really all these are, doing the work that a lot of people for years have been refusing to do, which is restoring, cleaning up these B-movies that range from so bad they're good to sometimes just pure terrible. But, you know, actually, some of them are actually pretty good, like Little Shop of Horrors is... I think some people would say that's a so bad it's good movie, but to me it's like, no, it's just a good movie. Like, I think Roger Corman knew the kind of tone that movie was going for, and people laugh at it now, but I think people were laughing then too, because of their sometimes public domain status, or depending on who owns the movies, they just get neglected on home video. So it's great that Film Masters is finally doing the job that so many people refuse to do, and I'm going to continue to buy their sets. They've done some DVD-only releases as well, so I'll have to give those a look in the future, but you'll see more of the Film Masters on this series as we go forward. We have here The House on Haunted Hill. So, years ago, Shout Factory released Vincent Price, these sets of Vincent Price films. The second volume is out of print, it's impossible to get, and throughout the years I've been buying a lot of those films through Kino, because Kino actually re-released most of the Volume 2 movies on Blu-ray, except for one. They did not release House on Haunted Hill. I think this movie's had several Blu-ray releases besides the Shout Factory set from years ago, but I don't know if any of them have had a good transfer. And this transfer was actually done using artificial intelligence. That's how they got the 3D conversion to work. So I have my issues with AI, but if you're going to use it for like film transfers, especially for some of these movies that would never get the money to do it anyway, I'm fine with that. There's been some hits and misses with it. You know, obviously they tried it for True Lies, I believe. There's been a lot of rumors that they used AI to fix the transfer on True Lies and some of the other James Cameron movies that Disney recently put on Blu-ray and on 4K. And that, I heard, was not done too well, and that's when I have my issues. It's like, you know, you can use it to help, but you still have to, like, put in the extra work in order for the transfer to look good. So I don't know what this one looks like, but this is not the same size company that something like Disney is. I'm fine if you're going to take these older movies that will never get a good transfer anyway and putting them on Blu-ray, especially if you want to do like a 3D conversion. I think that's fine. It's too bad that the Shout Factory release is not available anymore, because I'd like to own that. But regardless, I'm going to have to give this one a watch. It says it's a 3D Blu-ray, but it also works with a normal 2D Blu-ray. And apparently, there's like another thing where, so if you've ever heard of the movie, also, I'm not so sure about this artwork, because this looks like this was done in AI, and I don't like that. But otherwise, I'm curious to see what the 3D transfer looks like, and there's actually a barcode on here that you can get your iPad or your phone to work with the movie. It kind of reminds me of Disney's second screen that they had years ago on their Blu-rays. A lot of those apps are not even available anymore, but it used to be where your iPad would interact with the movie as you watch it. If you watch that movie Matinee, that's basically a movie about a director that was similar to William Castle. Well, this movie at the time had interactive stuff within the theater. And with this iPad, the way that you scan this and whatever you do on your iPad, it's meant to recreate the experience. So I think that's a cool gimmick to add to the Blu-ray. I really hope the Blu-ray looks good. I'd like to see the results of using AI to do the film transfer, because like I said, that seems to be something that could be used in the future to just help speed up the process. But you know, in the case of something like True Lies, clearly it's not going to work as a complete replacement to the human element. We have here the 1927 silent film classic Napoleon. This was a movie that at the time there were scenes in it that were running off of 3 different projectors to create this like ultra widescreen picture, something that had never really been done in movies up until that point. And the movie is kind of weird because this is a movie that so this is the BFI Blu-ray. This is a Region B Blu-ray release. It doesn't work in the US Blu-ray player, so it will not work in my PlayStation. But I do have a Blu-ray ripper that I can rip the files and put them on my computer. But why would I do that? Well, the problem is that the movie is not available in the United States. At least this version isn't. The fully restored version with the ultra like widescreen scenes, that version's not available in the US. There's other bad transfers of the movie. And then there was a restoration that Francis Ford Coppola did. His version's not available on Blu-ray, and apparently he's halted any release of this version being in the US at all. He's halted any plans for that to happen because he owns the rights to his version. And I don't know, it's kind of weird because the movie's old enough where it could be hitting public domain, but since he owns a restoration of it that he did himself and he's released it, he like stops the release of this one in the US, and it's very confusing. I've never really heard of anything like that before. But the point is, in order to get this version, you gotta buy a Region B Blu-ray, and you either have to have a region-free Blu-ray player, or you gotta have something that can rip it to your computer. And I did that because you can also watch this movie on the BFI streaming service. At least I think you can. It might not be available on there anymore, but that streaming service isn't available in the US. You'd have to get a VPN, and also I think you would miss out on all these special features as well. So I just bought the Blu-ray because I don't know if this will get released in the future anytime soon. What's weird is that this is the 5-hour cut. This is a 5-hour long movie. Apparently it originally ran around, I believe, 7 hours, and Netflix has been the distributor for an upcoming restoration that's even longer than this version. So they actually have a new restoration coming out, and I believe it's premiering this year, if it hasn't premiered already. But it's not premiering in the US, and I don't know if America's going to get it on their Netflix streaming services. I have no idea. I don't know what the plan is there, because I feel like they're going to run into the issue again with Francis Ford Coppola, who owns his version in the US. So I don't know. Like I said, it's a very confusing situation as far as a movie that is so old. I'm like, I feel like this should be in the public domain already. I have here Aladdin. Look at that. It was a $2 Blu-ray from Half Price Books, and I don't really have anything else to say about this movie except I did really enjoy it at the time. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a good Guy Ritchie movie. I thought it is the best of the Disney animation remakes, the live-action remakes anyway. Here is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So this is actually the Kenneth Branagh version. This was also like right after Francis Ford Coppola released his version of Dracula. And this is the Arrow Blu-ray release, and the biggest reason I wanted to get it was I was curious to kind of give a lot of Frankenstein movies a watch. The oldest version of Frankenstein on film, from my understanding, was a Thomas Edison version that was done in 1910. And I didn't think that that movie had like a release on home video or anything, but actually it's included as a special feature on this Blu-ray, so that's pretty cool. And when I finally start watching some of these Frankenstein movies, I think this will be a good one to start out with. The 1994 version I have to watch at some point. I've never seen it, but it's cool that they actually included an over 100-year-old short film in the special features. Here's a weird one that I found. The Fear footage. This was a movie that I found at Half-Price Books, and it's a very low-budget movie. I don't know anything about this, but this disc art really got me. I was like, man, I have to know what this one's all about. I assume it's probably some kind of found footage movie. Here's the Iron Petticoat. This is the Bob Hope, Katharine Hepburn film, a Cold War era film. And this is apparently pretty tough to find nowadays, so I was lucky to find it at a Half-Price Books for a pretty decent price. Don't really know much else about it, except I've never seen a release like this before. This is Turner Classic Movies, but it's their Vault Collection Blu-ray release. So I guess the movie's not technically owned by Warner Brothers, but it's actually a release that Warner Brothers would have done because TCM is Warner Brothers. Like I said, though, I've never seen a Blu-ray release like this before. But here's a Blu-ray that is very easy to find. Here is Public Enemies. This is the Michael Mann movie, which I don't know if it's controversial to say, but I haven't gotten on board with a lot of Michael Mann movies that I've seen. Like, I love Heat, but I watched Miami Vice, and I really struggled with that one. And then Ferrari came out. It seemed like people really dug that, but I really couldn't get into that movie either. I'm going to give Public Enemies a watch because I actually just watched the original James Cagney version, The Public Enemy. Now, I don't know if these movies really have anything to do with one another because I think they might have just taken the name and just called it Public Enemies, and it's a bit of a tribute to it. It's also a gangster movie like The Public Enemy, which was, you know, one of the earlier gangster films, you know, from back in the 30s. Like I said, really don't think they have anything to do with each other, but I thought it was fair that I would give Public Enemies a watch. And, you know, time to give Michael Mann a chance on some other movies. You know, I gotta still watch Thief. And I hear Thief is great, so maybe that will change my mind on things. And that is everything for today. Let me know your thoughts on some of those films, and thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the video, and special shout out to Anthony, Anna, Kirsten, Spencer, Lucas, and Robert for the support on Patreon. By joining my Patreon, you can get exclusive videos and blogs, and for only $7, you can request your own movie review. I hope you stick around, Cinephile, and have a happy, productive day.